Can I talk about YouTube a lot and my experience? Yes. Am I monetized now? Yes. I can give plenty of first-hand advice. I'm kind of an expert now. I know how it works. It took me a long time. I can give you advice based on my personal experience, not what I heard or what I've learned from other videos, but what I have experienced, what I did myself with no help from anybody, without paying anybody to, without paying anybody to do my editing, my filming, my SEO, my titles, my thumbnails, nothing. I've done it all myself. I've shot everything myself. I've come up with every idea. I've edited everything. I've uploaded everything. I've done everything myself, and I'm making money. And I'm doing stuff that I'm proud of. For those who are interested in such things, I am shooting with my backup camera, my Panasonic GH5, and I'm using a TT Artisan 17mm f1.4 lens. I am recording my audio into my Zoom H1N using a Purple Panda lavalier mic. And I also have a Boya mic on top of the camera, a little shotgun mic, $20 just for a backup. And all of that is actually relevant to what I want to talk about, kind of, sort of. Today I was working with a friend of mine who I'm actually coaching to create a YouTube channel. And I've been working with a few people about this, which is pretty interesting because it seems like my most popular videos are me complaining about YouTube and complaining about monetization. And I just noticed that people enjoy videos where you complain. And it's been an interesting kind of experiment where I'm not saying that I don't really feel the way I feel. Like, I honestly feel that way. But, it doesn't often occur to me like, gee, a great video would be to complain about something. I mean, I'm so privileged, and I got nothing to complain about, really. My life is fine. There are people going through horrific things at the moment, fires and oppression and genocides and starvation and torture. There's, like what I'm going through is not rough, you know what I mean? So there's no reason for me to be complaining about anything. But, everything's relative. We're all living our lives. And I just recently got monetized on YouTube, and now I'm trying to build that, and I'm trying to be much more financially independent from just the creative work that I do, meaning just my filmmaking and my theater work, trying to find other ways to get some income so I can be totally free all the time without having to do anything else that's outside of being creative, because to me, YouTube is a creative practice as well. I make an effort to make my lighting look good. I try to create a frame that looks interesting. I'm outdoors most of the time, so I try to go to interesting locations that look good to people. Somebody once actually mentioned to me in a video that he enjoys the fact that I show up at a lot of places where there are bridges because it makes him feel like we're going somewhere. And I love that, because that's really what YouTube is kind of like. If you're posting a lot, to me, it should be like you're going somewhere. You're headed in some direction, like trying to get to some kind of destination for some kind of purpose, like you're searching for something. And a lot of my creative work is based on my life search for my biological mother, my birth family, the people who made me, the DNA people of me, and also my relationships with my adoptive family and my adoptive parents, and how grateful I was and am to have lived the life that I've lived, but also the complexity that goes along with that, all the layers that are involved and the nuance in navigating that type of existence, not knowing a lot of things about yourself, like your medical history, where you came from, what your name was. I find out that I lived in 3 different foster homes before I was finally adopted. And like, you don't have your real birth certificate. When I did finally get my real birth certificate, I had all this stuff crossed out and all these little signatures, and I'll never know what any of that means, And I'll never really know my biological mother, or I don't know anything about my biological father. I do know a lot of information about my birth mother, and I made 2 films about that. three actually, well, two films and a play, but I never met her. So in my mind, I don't really know anything. I just know what I heard, what I was told, and then what I created. And I think I'm lucky that I'm a storyteller by trade, that I earn a living as a playwright and as a filmmaker. And so I can create these stories based on a true story. And I think that's interesting. And I guess what I'm talking about today is, this friend of mine who I'm coaching to get her YouTube channel going she's somebody who's a highly accomplished person who has, overcome a lot. She's been through a lot, but she's also had an incredibly privileged life. But she's a transracially adopted person, and there's a lot that goes with that, And it's been good for me to coach her, and I was actually working with somebody else as well, because when I ask them questions, having to come up with questions makes me question my own practice of YouTube. And, I question, why am I doing this? What is my purpose? What is my point? What am I hoping people get out of this? What is my contribution? And somebody came to my channel today and they left a comment on my latest video. And they said to me that, channels like yours, channels that are about philosophy. And I was like, oh, I never heard that before. Nobody ever said philosophy to me with regards to my YouTube channel, because my YouTube channel started pretty much, when I started taking it seriously. I mean, I've been on YouTube for a very long time, but that's because I'm a performing artist. So, there's been a lot of performance videos about me doing plays and doing stuff like that. But when I started taking it seriously, it became a filmmaking channel, because I started doing YouTube when I was learning how to be a filmmaker. I mean, I started taking YouTube seriously when I became a filmmaker, and suddenly it became kind of like a camera channel, lenses, filmmaking, technique, doing stuff by yourself. But as much as I'm passionate about creating my own work, obviously, because that's what my life is, making films, making plays, like making stories. But they're not YouTube stories. They're too long. They're all about development of characters, of story, exposition, where you're starting, where you came from, why you're here, where you want to go, what problems you have to solve to get to where you want to go. What is your destination? What are the obstacles that you have to get over to get there? And then what are you hoping to get out of this story? That's not a YouTube video, generally. But my YouTube videos are kind of like that sometimes, and people often say that they're too long, right? I mean, definitely nobody's ever accused me of telling a short story or knowing how to tell a short story, even in my professional work. Like I'm a solo artist, and my plays, just looking at one guy on stage, are sometimes 2.5 hours long. Now, you would think that's too long until you come into the theater and the time goes by like that, because my first director just like drove into me that my first responsibility to my audience is to make sure that nobody out there is bored, ever. And so your story better never get stuck anywhere. You better make sure that every word is necessary in that story, and every line pushes you to the next line, and every scene moves you to the next scene. Always pushing forward to get to the end. Always at the edge of your seat waiting to see what's going to happen next. And so I try to make YouTube videos like that too, and I'm sure I don't succeed because I don't focus on them as much as I do my playwriting or my screenwriting. But just by nature, that's the way I think. So I think I accomplish that most of the time, or for the most part. And like I said, I'm sure plenty of people come here and think it's boring because they have TikTok brains. They can't deal with anything longer than 2 or 3 minutes, 7 seconds, 17 minutes tops. But usually people want 2 or 3 minutes, and that's it. Fortunately for me, my retention rate here at YouTube is really good. It's always over 8 minutes, sometimes as much as 12, 15 minutes. Like sometimes people watch my entire video that's 45 minutes long. So I take that as a huge compliment. But today when this guy left this comment about philosophy, I was talking to my friend today about what her channel is going to be about. And I thought to myself, this is interesting that I'm having this conversation with her because it's a perfect example of where I know how to explain what you should be doing, but it's been hard for me to implement that on my own channel because I think anybody who really follows me, it would be hard for you to describe or define what my channel is. And I was actually talking to another friend of mine this morning about this, who's first of all, one of my dear, dear friends, but also has been an amazing supporter of my work for many years. And she's kind of a YouTube scientist. Like, she really understands YouTube, and she's often making a lot of suggestions to me. And she just makes me think all the time. And what I realized this morning, we had an exchange via text, and I realized, like, she made a recommendation of where she thought my channel could go. Teaching people how to make solo films, teaching people how to film themselves, how to create a story all by themselves with, being behind the camera and in front of the camera. And I think that's a great idea, except that I don't know if it's sustainable to me because honestly, I feel like I could teach you all of that in 1 or 2 videos, probably 1 video. Maybe I could stretch it out to 3 or 4, but then, if I'm being really sincere, I'd be done after that, Like, could I go on and do that over and over and over again for years? Probably. But I don't want to do that. I don't ever want to turn on this camera and just force it, or talk about stuff that I think I should be talking about. I would prefer to be inspired. Like, I was inspired to sit down in front of the camera right now. I didn't plan on doing this. I like to post stuff as much as I possibly can because that's good for trying to make money on this platform. And it's also good for consistency, and, people will start to, like, hope for something the next day, like they'll anticipate what you're doing. And some people say it's good to let something linger for a few days, but just as many people say, just post every day. People want to see it every day. There's been a young woman who's been coming to my channel a lot lately. I think she's from Mexico. And she's been so encouraging and so supportive. And she's like, just post every day, just post every day. We want to hear from you every day. Just get in front of the camera, just do it. Just say something. Don't worry about the set. Don't worry about the lights. Don't worry about anything. Just post every day. And her energy is so good. You know what I mean? Like, I love her energy and I believe her. And I feel like she's so sincere. And, I go to her channel and I can't really contribute because she speaks in Spanish and I don't speak fluent Spanish. I mean, I understand quite a bit of Spanish, but not enough to know what she's talking about. I mean, if you live in the Bronx long enough, you're going to understand a lot of Spanish. And so anyway, I'm trying to figure out, like, still, what is my channel about? And I'm thinking today about philosophy and the way I look at the world and the way I look at things. Like, I had an exchange last night with somebody who left a comment who didn't make me feel very good. And somebody who I actually feel is kind of clueless about what he was talking about. But I don't want to be rude, you know what I mean? And I don't want to come off like an asshole. But the comment that he made, it was clear to me. First of all, he doesn't even live in this country. And he was making like political commentary about what's going on in this country right now. Because I had said something in my last video about it. And I didn't really go into it too deeply, but it was just some concerns that I had. And he commented on that. And then he made some other broad statements. And I'm like, you don't even live in this country. You don't even know what you're talking about. And what I like about that was that these are the kind of exchanges that I really want to have. I really want to talk about stuff that might not be easy for people to handle, but I don't want to do it in a way where they never want to come back to the channel. Somebody who was a pretty big follower of mine came to one of my videos once and he didn't like what I said. I guess he was a very, very far-right extremist. And he left me a very supportive, cool message, but he disagreed with some stuff that I said. And then he said, have a good life, like, good luck, man. And he disappeared. And I don't know if he hid himself from my channel or just like, he was just like so diametrically opposed to what I said. But I felt kind of sad about that because, like, obviously he and we don't agree on certain things. But I don't think he nor I are murderers or rapists or thieves or, like, you know what I mean? We're just disagreeing about social justice and politics and the way a government should be run and things like that. I mean, I don't, like, I know that this might sound crazy to people, but I don't really understand how anybody could really disagree with the things that I say. I think certain things that I say trigger people to think I'm saying something else and to have them judge me and think that I am something that they don't have any idea what I'm about because they don't know me. Because really the only things I talk about are equality, everybody having the same rights, everybody having the right to live, people being treated kindly, people having empathy and not thinking it's all about them. Like, that's really all I talk about. I talk about, every time I see racism, anti-Semitism, misogyny, homophobia, xenophobia, like anytime I see any of that, I speak out about it because I don't see how you can think any of that is good, And when I get into stuff that's maybe a little bit more, like debatable, like separating children from their families when you're, pushing immigrants out of the country, illegal immigrants. I do look at that a lot differently than a lot of conservative people in this country. But to me, it is never cool, ever, not one time, never, to separate children from their families. Ever. Never. I don't care what you do, Like, I guess the only time I could possibly imagine that is if somebody's father or mother has committed some kind of heinous crime and they have to go to prison or whatever, then obviously they're going to be separated from their child. But then, hopefully that child will wind up with a grandmother or an aunt or an uncle or cousins or somebody that they're comfortable with that they know. But you don't just separate them. Like if you're like deporting people, like if you're finding people in a store or at their job or on a bus and like immediately putting them on a plane or a boat out of the country without their child, without the opportunity to go home and explain things, without the opportunity to get their things, I just don't think that's good. I don't think that's cool in any case ever, especially if these are people who are paying taxes and have jobs and are working in this country. At least give them the opportunity to get their stuff in order before you throw them out. So I don't understand how anybody could disagree with me on that. I'm not really saying anything about immigration or the issue of, the fact that some people think that there are immigrants taking their jobs or whatever. I'm not commenting on that at all. I'm just simply commenting on the human part of it. Families, people being treated kindly, people being treated with respect. I don't see how you could disagree with treating people with respect is the way to go. I don't see how you can argue with people who are of the LGBTQ community should have the same rights as anybody else, like that they should be able to be married. Why do you even care if they're married? Like who they love, like what does that even have to do with your life? That misogyny is wrong. Like, saying something like a broad statement like women should not serve in the military. How could you say that across the board? How could you disagree with that? There are plenty of women who could kick many men's asses that I can think of. And yet many people think that that man should be able to be in the military, but the woman shouldn't. I mean, there should be standards. Everybody should be able to pass those standards. Just like being a firefighter, when you got to carry a 70-pound bag of potatoes or rocks or something up a 5-story walk-up in New York City to be a firefighter, whether you're male or female, you should be able to be a firefighter if you can pass all those tests. It should have nothing to do with your gender. So, yeah, I feel strongly about a lot of things, but when you really think about it, I'm just talking about equality. I'm talking about, law-abiding citizens who are contributing members of society should all be treated with the same respect and have the same opportunities and should be able to thrive based on what they can do tangibly, And so anyway, it's interesting because look where I've gone with this video. This is really what my channel is about. My thoughts on the world. Do I give a lot of advice about filmmaking and storytelling and playwriting and stuff like that? Yes, and I think it's really valuable. Can I talk about YouTube a lot and my experience? Yes. Am I monetized now? Yes, I can give plenty of first-hand advice. I'm kind of an expert now. I know how it works. It took me a long time. I can give you advice based on my personal experience, not what I heard or what I've learned from other videos, but what I have experienced, what I did myself, with no help from anybody, without paying anybody to, without paying anybody to do my editing, my filming, my SEO, my titles, my thumbnails, nothing. I've done it all myself. I've shot everything myself. I've come up with every idea. I've edited everything. I've uploaded everything. I've done everything myself, and I'm making money. And I'm doing stuff that I'm proud of. I haven't ever posted a video that I'm not proud of. Some videos do better than others, but I'm not throwing up any bullshit ever. And so I think my channel is kind of all about who I am, the way I look at the world. And I guess my intention is that if you watch my channel and you enjoy it, it helps you to grow your empathy. It helps you to look at things maybe differently than you might have before you watch the video. Because that's what my creative work is about. I take difficult things and I try to turn them into beautiful stories, I took like the murder of somebody and I created these beautiful characters that people fell in love with, and it became a play that was a love story, but based on this horrific tragedy that happened, this crime, this murder, and this loss of a son that a father and mother had. And believe it or not, it became the most beautiful love story. And in fact, the hashtag for that play called Brooklyn Quartet was Love Just Is. Because that's what it's based on. Like, no matter what happens in life, if you have love, it can overcome just about anything. You can survive. That's what my channel is about. It's about love. It's about respect, honor, empathy, opportunity, equality, all the good things. And in the most creative ways. Like, this video right now is just a talking head video, but I did go to the effort to set up these lights to make sure everything looked, presentable. So I'm respecting you, the person coming to this channel. I made sure that the sound is good, It's not like some crazy, I'm not talking from 8 feet away and it sounds like I'm in a big barren room. Like, it sounds like a movie, like a film. I did make the effort. And so, yeah, I can give you a lot of good advice on filmmaking, certainly solo filmmaking, writing, creating stories, the arc of a story. I can talk to you about lenses and the lens journey, choosing focal lengths and dealing with depth of field and aperture and framing and composition and how to try to make everything look like a painting, and how it's all a very spiritual practice for me. It's not just technical for me, none of it. I can talk to you about that, and that's like a kind of a different perspective, and I know that you could learn a lot from that. I teach writing and performance workshops over the years too, so I bring that experience to this space too. So, yeah, I don't know if I can give you one line that will define my channel, but I think all of this defines it pretty well, in my opinion. And, you might be looking at this going, I have no fucking idea what he's talking about. And that just means that you're not the person for this channel. And you might also be the person who logged off a long time ago when I started to kind of digress into the political, philosophical realm. And if you can't deal with that, if you can't deal with the exchange, if you can't deal with me getting back to you and pushing back at you when I disagree with you, but not deleting you unless you're disrespectful, unless you leave some fucked up shit, and then of course I'm going to delete you, But if you just want to argue with me about stuff, I'm good with that, as long as it's, like I said, as long as it's respectful. But if you can't deal with that, you're not the right person for this channel. And then I ain't mad at you for going away. That's cool. But that's kind of sad, because, in fact, that's everything that's wrong with the world right now. People don't agree with everything. And you will never win an argument with me when you're arguing against equality and against the fact that everybody should be treated equal and everybody should have empathy. And everybody should have the right to live their life however they want to live it, without encroaching upon somebody else's life. That nobody should ever have the right to tell anybody else how to exist in this world, as long as they are not stepping on anybody else's existence. I will never agree with you if you argue about that, but I will always be open to talking about it in a respectful manner. I will never hate you for disagreeing with me. I will be baffled, and it'll probably sadden me, because that means like you have some kind of reason that people should be told how to live. even if it has nothing to do with your life, other than like, don't steal, don't kill, of course. Common sense, right? So, yeah, I know exactly what my channel's about. I've often thought about starting a second channel and keeping one channel just the filmmaking stuff and another channel all this other philosophical stuff. But I don't think I need to do that, because my philosophical social justice self is the person creating my filmmaking and my creative work. It's all the same. I can't have one without the other. When I deal with the stuff in the world that bothers me, instead of just being a teacher or an activist or a journalist or something like that, I'm an artist. And so I try to create a beautiful story to share with people, and then I want to do Q&As and discuss it. And so it's all connected, it's all combined. And so I hope I have millions of followers who think that that's okay. Because yeah, of course, as an artist who creates work, my dream is that everybody comes to see my work, that everybody wants to see it. Everybody wants to watch my movie. Everybody wants to come to my play. That's my dream. But I also understand that not everybody's going to like me. And if you don't like me, get in line. There are plenty of people who don't like me. There are plenty of people who find me abrasive. There are plenty of people who can only deal with me in small doses, and that's okay. Because there are plenty of people who love me, who adore me, who respect me, admire me, who want me in their life. And so if you want to be a part of this channel, subscribe. Hit the like button. Consider being a part of my Patreon, because a lot of stuff happens at my Patreon page that does not happen here. Because those people are actually supporting me financially too. Even if it's a tiny amount of money every month, they've said to me, I think you should exist in the world. Your art is important to me. And that is something I will never take for granted. That is the most humbling thing I can think of. But I'm also humbled and grateful that anybody would take time out of their life to come spend some time with me here, even when I'm being somewhat controversial. So thank you for that. And I am going to end this video right now.